The Jedi loved to talk about truth, but they never lived it. They built temples of light while burying every emotion, every flaw, and every inconvenient reality beneath layers of robes and riddles. To them, peace was control, and balance was silence. They weren't truth seekers. They were truth deniers. The Sith didn't hide from the darkness. They looked right at it, and they smiled. To them, emotion wasn't corruption. It was clarity. Power wasn't evil. It was survival. And for all their cruelty, the Sith were brutally honest about what drives every being in the galaxy: desire, fear, and the will to change the world around them. The Jedi pretended to transcend those things, but the Sith understood that without them, there's nothing left to live for. While the Jedi whispered about harmony, the Sith screamed about hunger. And the galaxy listened. Because deep down, everyone knows the Sith aren't entirely wrong. They saw the hypocrisy of the Jedi, the illusion of peace, and they called it out for what it was. They just took it too far. They told the truth, but they turned it into a weapon. That's what makes the Sith terrifying. Not their lightning, not their armies, but their philosophy. They spoke the truths that everyone else was too afraid to admit. That peace is temporary. That emotion is power. That control is just another form of fear. And once you realize that, the Jedi's version of morality starts to sound less like wisdom and more like denial. Every great Sith, from Revan to Sidious, built their strength on that foundation of honesty. Even when they lied to others, they rarely lied to themselves. They understood that the Force wasn't light or dark. It was everything. The Jedi chose to see half the picture, but the Sith saw the whole canvas, ugly and raw and real. In this video, we're breaking down why the Sith were the only ones who told the truth, how their philosophy shattered the Jedi's illusions, and why their greatest danger wasn't their power, but the fact that deep down they might have been right all along. For all their talk about peace and balance, the Jedi lived inside a fantasy of their own making. They claimed to seek harmony in the Force, but their definition of harmony was total emotional sterilization. They didn't confront darkness, they pretended it didn't exist. The Sith, on the other hand, looked straight into that darkness and said, yes, it's real, and it's part of us. The Jedi feared truth because it was messy, unpredictable, human. The Sith embraced it, and that's what made them dangerous, not just to others, but to the illusion the Jedi had built for themselves. When you strip away the lightsabers, the temples, and the robes, Star Wars isn't really a story of good versus evil. It's a story of denial versus acceptance. The Jedi denied emotion, desire, and the will to act, while the Sith accepted them as the raw truths of existence. To the Sith, peace was a lie because it could never last. Conflict was natural because it reflected life itself. And while the Jedi tried to freeze the galaxy in stillness, the Sith allowed it to evolve, even through pain. Palpatine once said that the dark side was a path to many abilities some consider unnatural, but what he really meant was uncomfortable. The Sith forced people to face uncomfortable truths. That power is real. That desire motivates every choice. That morality is often just control dressed up as righteousness. It's easy to dismiss them as villains because they kill and conquer. But the ideas behind their actions were what truly terrified the Jedi. Because those ideas hit too close to home. Even in the way the Sith viewed the Force, there was a brutal honesty to it. The Jedi saw the Force as something to serve. The Sith saw it as something to master. And honestly, both were wrong, but at least the Sith admitted their intentions. They didn't hide behind prophecy or moral codes. When they craved power, they said so. When they sought revenge, they didn't justify it as balance. The Sith never pretended to be something they weren't. Take Darth Bane, for example. He understood that the Sith's greed and infighting were unsustainable, so he didn't lie about it. He embraced it and turned it into a philosophy. The rule of two wasn't just about secrecy, it was about truth. One master to embody power, one apprentice to crave it. No temples, no bureaucracy, no self-righteous councils pretending to be humble. Just raw, unfiltered ambition. And in a twisted way, that honesty made the Sith stronger, even when it doomed them. The Jedi's greatest weakness wasn't that they lacked power, it was that they lacked perspective. They built an entire religion around denial. When anger came, they meditated it away. When attachment formed, they cut it off. When someone questioned the code, they exiled them. The Sith saw that for what it was, a spiritual prison, not enlightenment. Even Anakin's fall wasn't about corruption. It was about clarity. The Jedi told him to ignore fear and love, but those were the very things that made him human. The Sith told him to use them, to own them. Palpatine didn't create Anakin's darkness. He just acknowledged it when the Jedi refused to. And for a brief moment, that honesty felt like freedom. The irony is that the Sith's truth and the Jedi's lie are two sides of the same coin. Both believed they could control the Force, but only the Sith were self-aware enough to admit it. They didn't call it faith, they called it domination. They didn't pretend it was destiny, they made it will. If the Jedi built their power on illusion, then the Sith built theirs on brutal self-awareness. They knew exactly what they were, and they didn't apologize for it. Every act of cruelty, every betrayal, every rise to power, it all stemmed from one guiding belief: that emotion was the truest form of strength. To feel was to live. To desire was to grow. And to deny those things was to die standing still. Look at Darth Maul, broken, abandoned, and consumed by rage. His story isn't one of evil, it's one of survival. The dark side didn't make him cruel, it made him aware. Aware of betrayal, of injustice, of how the galaxy pretends to be moral while living off corruption. His vengeance wasn't random, it was focus born from pain. He was the physical embodiment of the truth that the Jedi refused to see, that suffering creates clarity, and clarity creates will. The Sith code says, "Peace is a lie, there is only passion," and that line alone dismantles centuries of Jedi philosophy. Peace isn't natural, it's temporary. The galaxy was always in motion, always in conflict, and pretending otherwise was the Jedi's greatest delusion. The Sith didn't see that as tragedy, they saw it as reality. And rather than fear it, they learned to master it. Even Count Dooku's fall makes more sense under that lens. He wasn't seduced by evil, he was disillusioned by hypocrisy. He saw a republic rotting from the inside, a Jedi council too paralyzed to act, and a system that demanded obedience over justice. So when the Sith offered him truth, he took it. Not because he wanted power, but because he finally saw through the illusion of virtue. This is the part that makes the Sith philosophy so unnerving. It's not entirely wrong. Passion does lead to strength. Strength can lead to power. And power in the right hands can lead to freedom. The problem was never the philosophy itself. It was how easily it corrupted those who wielded it. But the truth at its core was undeniable. The Sith just stopped pretending it was pretty. Contrast that with the Jedi, who constantly preached humility while operating as generals in a galactic war. They condemned desire while sitting in a marble temple built at the centre of galactic politics. They weren't monks, they were manipulators who didn't realise their own hypocrisy. The Sith didn't invent corruption. They just pointed it out. Palpatine may have twisted the Sith philosophy into tyranny, but he understood its foundation better than anyone. He knew that people crave truth, even if it scares them. And by speaking that truth in half-truths and manipulation, he conquered an entire galaxy without firing a single shot. That's the ultimate irony of the dark side. It tells you the truth, but it uses that truth to enslave you. It reveals how power works, but it convinces you that you can master it, when, in reality, it masters you. The Jedi's lie gave comfort. The Sith's truth gave consequence. And most beings would rather live comfortably than truthfully. In the end, the Sith were reflections of everything the Jedi denied. Not monsters born of evil, but mirrors showing what the Jedi truly feared to see: themselves. What makes the Sith fascinating isn't just their power, it's their honesty about the cost of it. They never promised paradise. They promised struggle, dominance, and the chance to rise above weakness. It's a philosophy built on pain, but at least it acknowledges that pain is part of life. The Jedi saw pain as something to purge, but the Sith saw it as something to learn from. And in that way, they were far more in tune with reality than their so-called enlightened counterparts. Darth Sidious, for all his deceit, was open about his ambition. He didn't hide behind destiny or balance. He wanted control because control meant survival. When you live in a galaxy of endless conflict, peace is just a pause between battles. Sidious understood that. The Jedi didn't. That's why they fell. They were waiting for a stillness that never existed. Even Darth Vader's story shows how the Sith told the truth, even when it destroyed them. He became what he feared, yes, but his fear was real. His love was real. His pain was real. The Jedi wanted him to forget all of it, while the Sith told him to use it. And that's why he turned. The Sith didn't have to lie to him. They just gave him permission to feel. But that's also where the danger lies. Because the Sith truth, while honest, is incomplete. They understood emotion but not compassion, power but not purpose. Their truth revealed the flaws of the Jedi, but it didn't fix them. It consumed them. Honesty without morality isn't wisdom. It's fire. It burns bright, but it destroys everything it touches. Still, when you look across Star Wars, from Revan to Kylo Ren, what unites the Sith isn't their evil, it's their self-awareness. Every one of them knows who they are and what they want. They lie to others, sure, but rarely to themselves. That's something the Jedi could never claim. The Jedi lied to maintain order. The Sith told the truth to gain control. Both sides wanted the same thing, peace, but only one admitted it would come through domination, not denial. And that's what makes the Sith so strangely compelling. They understood that truth and power are never clean, that freedom always demands a price. They weren't philosophers, they were realists. Their worldview may have been cruel, but it was grounded in the reality of how people actually are, not how they should be. When you strip away the Force and the fantasy, the Sith philosophy is disturbingly human. It's ambition, anger, desire, all the things people suppress in the name of civility. The Jedi called it corruption, but maybe it was just honesty without restraint. And if that's true, then maybe the line between light and dark was never moral. It was psychological. In the end, the Sith didn't destroy the Jedi with power. They destroyed them with truth. They forced the galaxy to confront the lie of peace, the illusion of control, and the hypocrisy of virtue. And the scariest part is that deep down, the Jedi knew they were right. Because the Sith may have been wrong about everything, but they were honest about why. And sometimes, honesty is more dangerous than any lightsaber.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.